Good morning, everyone. Here we are going to start the next module, that is first module. It is we are going to talk about the introduction towards measurement and some of the scaling techniques. And in the previous classes, we have discussed about the nature and use of a psychological test, and we have given the definition for psychological testing, and we have given the entire outline related to a psychological test or conducting the psychological test. And here we are going to give some of the description towards the measurement and some of the scaling techniques. Yes, we are going to give the definition of measurement. Measurement is the assignment of scores to individuals so that the scores represent some characteristics of the individual. This general definition of measurement is consistent with measurement in psychology too. That is, the psychological measurement is often referred to as psychometrics. So we know that in the previous one we have discussed about the psychological test, and that test being conducted on basis of the measurements. And measurement is that you are assigning some of these scores, that you are assigning some of the numerical values for the person, as well as to mention some of the scores, that is scores to individuals, so that the scores represent some characteristics or some behavior of that person or that individual. So this general definition of measurement is consistent with measurement in psychological area too. That is, when you are giving the scoring, it is also referred as, or the psychological measurement is also mentioned as psychometrics. Yes, you can see one of the example for related to the measurement, that is scores which are giving the characteristics for the individual or behavior for the individual, that is administers the Beck depression inventory. So when you are conducting or when you are administering the psychological test, that is one of the psychological tests, that is Beck depression inventory, which is a 21 item self report questionnaire in which the person rates the extent to which he or she has felt sad, lost energy, and experienced other symptoms of depression over the past 2 weeks. The sum of these 21 items in the scores and represent his or her current level of depression. So here we have given an example related to the Beck depression inventory, and it is an inventory consisted of 21 questions in the questionnaire, and it is also a self-report questionnaire that we will discuss in the side of operational definition later. Okay, so it will be mentioning these 21 items, will be mentioning related to the person, how the person rates that he or she has felt sad or lost energy and experienced or some other symptoms related to depression for the last 2 weeks. Okay, and the sum of these items will be given as a score, and this score will represent the level of depression of that individual. So from that we'll understand that it is mentioned as numerical score, and that will represent or that will give an area of or the level of depression. So that is one of the example that we can mention with the measurement using one of the inventory for that, that is Beck depression inventory. So that is why we have discussed the psychological test first. So when we gone for some of the we have got an outline related to how we are conducting the psychological test, and later we come to the area of measurement. Okay, so from that we'll understand what is a test. So one of the tests like Beck depression inventory and how it is being scored, or how the score level of that is given the numerical values or numerical scores, and how it will be connected to the level of depression. Yes, so what is happening in the case of measurement apart from psychological test. So measurement it definitely focus on, or the psychological measurement it definitely focus on, what it does require is some systematic procedure for assigning scores to individuals or objects so that those scores represent the characteristics of interest. So we said that we have already given an example related to that. That is, measurement is what it does and require, and for conducting or to make it use of in the levels of measurement. So what it require or what it need is there is some systematic procedure for assigning the scores to individual or objects, and these scores represent the characteristics or level of characteristics of that person in different areas. And when moving into moving into some of the operational definition, that means it will give an detailed, or it will give an outline or idea related to what the variable that we are going for. So an operational definition is a definition of a variable in terms of precisely how it is to be measured. So for example, if we go for understanding any of the psychological variable, and we'll give an operational definition for that, what is that and how it is being mentioned. So that is clearly said that it is a definition of a variable in terms of precisely how it is to be measured, that we have to go for mentioning how that variable should be measured. So these measures generally fall into one of three broad categories. So mainly this measures being fall into mainly three broad areas or three categories we have for mentioning these measurement, so that we'll see one by one. The first category that will goes for related to operational definition, or the categories for making into come under the definition operational definitions, include the first one, that is the self-report measure. That is, self-report measures are those in which participants report on their own thoughts, feelings and actions as with the Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale. So that is one of the example for related to self-report measure, that is Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale. So here what they are doing is it is the participant or the subject itself reporting some of the feelings or some of the thoughts and actions by their own. Okay, so they itself filling the measurement or report. They are giving one self-report related to their characteristics or their behaviors. So one of the example for that is Rosenberg Self-Esteem Scale. And the other operational category, that is behavioral measures. And behavioral measures are those in which some other aspects of participants' behavior is observed and recorded. So it is behavioral measures, the behavioral patterns of the other participant or the client is being understood by the clinical psychologist or researcher or the trainer from the other area, that is he will be an observer, and they are observing and they are understanding the behavioral patterns, and that is being recorded. So that will comes under behavioral measures. So the first one is self-report measures, and the second one is behavioral measures. And this is an extremely broad category that includes the observation of people's behavior both in highly structured laboratory tasks and in more natural settings. So behavioral measures is a broad category, that is we can say that the people's behavior can be observed with structured laboratory settings as well as in the natural setting. So observation will goes on. So it is making some difficulties in the case of behavioral measures. And a good example for the behavior measures that includes it would be measuring the working memory capacity using the backward digit span task, or you can see that some of the immediate memory span task. So it is all related to measuring the working memory of the person. And the other one, the other operational definition that goes, it will be physiological measures. And we know that physiological measures are those that involve recording any of a wide variety of physiological processes, including heart rate and blood pressure and galvanic skin response, hormone levels, and electrical activity and blood flow in the brain. So this is all related to the physiological measures or physiological actions which are taking place in our body, and which are happening inside, or which are happening these measures, which are the processes which are going with the body, and it can be recorded using some of the processes like including heart rate, blood pressure, and skin response, hormone levels, and blood flow in the brain. So these all will be recorded using some of the measurements. So that we have already discussed, or you may be discussing these all related to blood flow, brain barriers, and blood flow in the brain, and how it is being measured. So these all things can be discussed in your related to human physiology. And this is the last, or this is the final operational definition under physiological measures, and most probably mainly three, that is self-referred measures, behavioral measures, and the third one is physiological measures. So it all related to physiological measures is all related to include go for recording the activity which are physiological activity which are taking place.